Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Just checking everybody can hear me and can see the introduction slide.
Yes.
Yes, cool. I can see
Yes.
some nodding. Brill. Thanks everyone. Just going to give it a maybe 30 seconds or so because I can see lots of people are still joining us, which is great. Lots of people coming in through the lobby, so that's brilliant. All right, everybody. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the Energy Demand Research Centre Flexible Fund. So this is an hour-long webinar. We've got quite a lot to cover. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an introduction to EDRC first of all. Then I'll talk more generally about the Flexible Fund and what it is and what we're running. And then we'll move to some of the shared questions that I've had come through when you guys registered. So thanks for sharing those. And then I'll open it up to more general questions as well. So please feel free to use the chat. We'll go through the introductory sections first. If you have any questions, I'll wait until the end, if that's okay, just because I'm conscious of timing. We'll also allow you guys to ask questions in person. So if you do have anything, please do raise your hand at the end when we get to that section and I'll come to you and you can unmute. Is that all right? Makes sense? Brilliant. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I'm going to pass over to Mari first, who's going to give us an introduction to EDRC. Thanks, Mari.
Thanks, Katie, and good afternoon, everyone. Really great to see you all today on our webinar about the Flexible Fund. So next slide, please, Katie. So we are the Energy Demand Research Centre, and I know that there are a lot of people in the room today who might be already quite familiar with us or working at EDRC, but I wanted to give an overview of what we are about, what the centre is doing, and what sort of our vision is, and what we also expect people who are applying for the Flexible Fund to kind of take into consideration when they apply for various different projects. So we are UKRI's main investment in energy demand research, and the centre was developed by following a sort of energy demand research champion phase that myself and Professor Sarah Walker, who's the co-director of EDRC, were selected to run. So we did that during 2022, 2023. So and we secured 15 million of funding from EPSRC and ESRC, so both research councils fund EDRC. We have a 1.85 million flexible fund that you will hear about today, particularly from Katie. And our centre started in July last year, and we have now over 75 people across 14 different universities. So we are really looking forward to also bringing more people into the centre through various different new projects. And at the development stage, we had 10 external partners that are working with us on various different projects. And we really encourage people to do other partnerships as well. Next slide, please. So just to let you know, and I know a lot of you in the meeting room already probably are quite committed to this, but we are very motivated by the reason that, we have to get to net zero. This is a really complex process, and we recognize that we need technical, political, social, and cultural considerations to be taken into account in that. So UKRI has funded us as an interdisciplinary research centre. So we recognize that there is an opportunity for energy demand reduction in the UK. And our previous research, particularly by colleagues at CREDS, John Barrett's team, shows that we could reduce demand by up to 50% by 2050. And the UK has very ambitious targets now for climate change as well. So energy demand reduction will play a really key role in that. So I mentioned already that we are an interdisciplinary and cross-sectoral centre. So we are looking at also energy demand in buildings, transport and industry, and using various different methods. And our team already comes from various different disciplines. I mentioned already that we work a lot with project partners. We also have a lot of networks and partnerships. So we have regular meetings with different government departments, for example. We have a really high level advisory board that has details on our website. And we are engaging at various different levels and across various different partners and external organizations to make sure that they know what we are doing at EDRC and that we can also feed our research findings and outputs to them, to then create lots of impact from the centre, which is one of the reasons that we got funded as well by UKRI, kind of thinking about that we need to have really clear pathways to impact with the centre as well. And we built on multiple previous centres' legacy. I mentioned CREDS already, which is the Centre for Research into Energy Demand Solutions. And before CREDS, there were 6 EU-ED funded research centres, or EU-ED research centres that UKRI funded beforehand as well. So we are in a long line of previous funding investments in this topic particularly. So we are really grateful for all the researchers that have been paving the way, all the early career researchers that have come from previous centres as well. And so we build on that legacy, and we want to make sure that we also build capacity for going forward so that we have a really, really exciting and strong workforce in energy demand research in the UK. And we build on our vision and our core values that we set up at the centre proposal stage. So Katie, can I have the next slide, please? So our vision is that we will inform and inspire energy demand reductions that support an affordable, comfortable and secure net zero society. And we want to make sure that energy demand reduction is the foundation for a fair, fast and flexible transition to net zero. And to do that, we champion research on cross-sectoral energy demand solutions that can be applied at speed and scale for significant impact. And next slide, please. And I mentioned already that we also have core values that we develop together as a team. So we want to make sure that we are fair to people and the planet. We are transparent in our approach. We are bold in our thoughts and actions. We are open to different points of view. And lastly, but most importantly, we are impactful towards the future of energy demand. And we want to make sure that everyone who is applying for the Flexible Fund actually takes a look at the guidelines and reads also our core values and our vision, and make sure that the projects that you are proposing are aligned to these as well. Next slide, please. And in terms of how we work and how we deliver our work in EDRC, so we want to make sure that we are a world-leading interdisciplinary research program, and we already have a lot of team members in EDRC that are internationally recognized in this field. We are also building on previous research. I mentioned that already. And one of the main objectives for the Flexible Fund is to identify new avenues. So it's really important that we bring additional projects to EDRC via the Flexible Fund. And we want to make sure that our research is rigorous, it's co-created by external partners, and it's actionable, and it's also impactful. And for that, we want to make sure that we produce evidence-based research that then produces really engaging outputs so that we can have really great outcomes as well. And we have embedded equality, diversity and inclusion from the start. And you can see that there's actually a spelling mistake there. I'm dyslexic myself, so apologies for that. But we want to make sure that EDI is something that we think about and we take into consideration, not only in terms of who is doing the research, but also how we do the research and how we engage with our various different partners, our research participants particularly, and how we actually sort of think about particularly inclusive ways of disseminating also our research. And we want to make sure, lastly, that we help to create an innovative, flexible and integrated net zero energy system. And next slide, please. So we have 5 main interdisciplinary research themes, and you might have already seen some of these on our website. So the themes were developed as part of our stakeholder engagement process that we run in sort of during the autumn of 2022. So this has really been a collaborative and co-creative process in terms of hearing from the research networks and all the stakeholders that we want to engage with, also getting their view on what themes we should be focusing on. So our futures theme combines insights from a 2-year citizens panel with quantitative energy demand modelling. So it's bringing together both qualitative and quantitative research to understand the conditions that are required for a lower energy future. In flexibility theme, we combine technology change and social change with high energy demand flexibility to change the way that we use energy and improve our lifestyles. And place theme considers the local differences in networks, services, and patterns of transport and building energy use to develop tools for specifically place-based approaches for faster decarbonisation, so that we can bring also localised co-benefits from those decarbonisation efforts. And then in governance, we examine the balancing of powers and resources between national and subnational actors, institutions and locations, and particularly thinking about why is it that supply always has quite a lot of focus in policy making, for example. But we want to make sure that we bring energy demand in the forefront of policy making. And last but not least, we have equity. And with this, we want to address the inequities in the affordability and accessibility of energy demand solutions, whilst at the same time realizing the opportunities that we can have in terms of securing sustainable economic benefits, such as new jobs and new skills. And next slide, please. And in addition to our main research themes, we also have centre cross-cutting transition challenges to make sure that all of our themes talk to each other, and to make sure that we are aware that what other projects and other themes are doing. And first of these challenges is engineering an integrated net zero transition, so looking at specifically what the engineering solutions might be. Second one is delivery models. So what kind of delivery models do we need to accelerate net zero transition? For example, in things like retrofit, and what kind of delivery models in retrofit are needed? Energy security is really important one, particularly thinking about energy demand solutions as a key part of energy security as well. And then last, realizing net zero through green jobs and skills. So what are the kind of future skills that we need in net zero transition? What kind of job opportunities are there? And I mentioned before that these are set up as a cross-cutting space to build centres, cross connections as well. And next slide, please. Thank you on my part, and I'll pass over to Katie.
Thanks ever so much, Mari. Just before we move on to the next section, I had a couple of messages come through while you were presenting to say that there might be a few people waiting in the lobby. So Ruby, just a quick question. Could you possibly check and see and let them in? Thank you. All right, guys. So we're going to get down a little bit to the nitty-gritty of what the Flexible Fund actually is and what it is that we are offering for applications. So as Mari mentioned earlier, the Flexible Fund is a 1.85 million fund aimed at supporting research related to energy demand reduction. It's actually just over 1.85, and you'll see that if you do the math and add up all of our different pots that we have. So there are 6 sub-funds promoting diverse projects, fostering collaborations, responding to emergency energy research needs. And they're open to both EDRC team members and new applicants. So that is anybody that's already involved in the EDRC consortium, plus new partnerships and collaborations. So we're hoping to encourage interdisciplinary research on energy demand. That's our main aim. So what are the funds? Well, we've got 6 sub-funds. They are the Rapid Projects Funds. That's open currently until December 2027, so open throughout. We've got the Early Career Fund. That's going to be coming online early in 2025. We've got the International Fund. That's currently open from now. And then we have the Impact Acceleration Fund, which will open in autumn of next year. The Datasets and Skills Fund, which will open in early 2025. And the Midterm Review Fund. This is to be confirmed when it's going to open exactly, but we're looking around January 2026 because it will be addressing some actions that we will receive from our midterm review. So who can apply? Well, we've had a couple of questions on this already. So the main applicant, it's really important, must be based at a UKRI registered research organisation. It's important that the main applicant is an academic, but that does also include early career researchers. for anybody that might be on fixed term or limited contracts, we need to make sure that employment contracts cover the duration of the project that's being applied for. So, or some kind of statement that that extension to the contract will happen. For some funds, like the Early Career Fund and the Impact Acceleration Fund, we're really conscious that those applicants must include at least one external collaborator. So we're looking at partnerships with industry or community groups, that kind of thing, within that project team. So a little bit more on early career researchers. We really are encouraging them to apply, especially anybody from underrepresented groups. And we're defining an ECR as an academic who has a PhD currently, hasn't led a research project valued at more than 100,000, and has not managed postdoctoral research assistants for more than 6 months. So how do we use these funds? Well, there are a few restrictions, but what we're really encouraging is anything to do with exploratory research, data analysis, case study research, or interdisciplinary workshops. Now, we can't fund things like capital or infrastructure-led projects, teaching relief, permanent staff time, basically anything that wouldn't normally be covered by UKRI funding, something that is a restriction for us. And this is the kind of process. I've tried to simplify how it's going to work. So the Flexible Fund will open, like our International Fund and our Rapid Fund at the moment. It's really encouraging. We're really trying to encourage the principal investigator to discuss the project with the appropriate EDRC theme member. And I'll come on to a slide about who those people are later on in the presentation. It's good to just have a quick discussion about what you're thinking around applying, what the funding pot might be, and whether that idea or that new research theme or area fits in with our current EDRC proposal and what it is that we're currently working on. So have a little chat with the theme member. Then it's whether it's relevant or not, yes, we hope. And the PI will submit the proposal to us, the operations team. So that's through our Flexible Fund email address. We, the operations team, do our initial checks on that. Has the application form been filled out correctly? Do we feel that the finances look like, they're on track? Is everything completed? Do we have all the information that we need? If it's a yes, we will then proceed to the review. So this is our review panel, which I'll share with you guys later on. And if the application is for over 100,000, we might be including our advisory board in that approval and review process. And hopefully it's nice and straightforward and the project gets funded. That's what we're aiming for. If it's not funded, we will aim to come back to everybody with feedback, and there might be an opportunity to resubmit as well. So all is not lost if it's not that first positive response. So as I mentioned, applications should be submitted via specified forms that we've got on the website, and the email address is here. It's flexiblefund@edrc.ac.uk. And it's just making sure that we've got all of those details. What are the research objectives? What's the timeline and budget, and how the project aligns to the EDRC core themes. We've got lots of guidance resources already on the website, so if you haven't had the opportunity to take a look, please do. We've got fund pages for each of those 6 sub-project funds. And there's a guidance document, and there's also an FAQs page as well, which will hopefully answer some of those questions. So what's the assessment criteria? Well, for all of the sub-project funds, we're using exactly the same criteria. We want to see the relevance to our EDRC themes and how well those projects align with our objectives. We want to see research excellence. So it's about quality and innovation of the research. We would like a problem or solutions focus. So what is the problem that's being addressed, or what is the solution that's being proposed? We're definitely looking for impact. That's a big one for us. So it's the potential for the project to make a meaningful contribution to energy demand reduction. And of course, value for money. So what's the justification of resources requested and that cost effectiveness of the project? So I spoke a little bit about this. I'll whiz through this. Review process is an eligibility check, making sure that everything's completed and we've got everything we need. And then there is the peer review. So they're reviewed by a peer review panel. Applications under 100,000, the EDRC award panel reviews and makes the funding decision. And then for projects over 100,000, there's an extended review process. So that will potentially include some of our members of our advisory board, just to give us an extra level of compliance. So I said I'd mention earlier who our panel members are. So the award panel chair is Mari and the deputy is Sarah Walker. The equity theme lead is Professor Karen Turner and their deputy is Christian. The futures theme lead is Professor John Barrett and the deputy is Rebecca. Flexibility theme is Professor Jacopo Toriti, and the deputy is Aruna. Governance is Professor Kate Pangborn, and her deputy is Marie Claire. And the place theme lead is Greg Marsden, and the deputy is Faye Wade. We've got an ECR champion as well, which is Professor Kate Pangborn. And our advisory board will be lent upon as needed. So that gives you an idea of who to go to and who to talk to for any questions around where your project or your application fits into those themes. So we're all about fairness and transparency in this process. We're using anonymous reviews for specific funds. We're making sure that all of our panel members have unconscious bias training or some sort of equivalent. We have tried to spread the panel across our specific skills of the panel of our EDRC colleagues. So trying to represent various genders, ethnicities, career stages, expertise and skills. And we want to make sure that that scoring process is transparent. We've got very clear criteria for the decision making, and our scoring spreadsheet that we'll be using for the advisory board is available as well in that guidance document. And of course, we're looking for a high number of applications. So it may be that we call upon others as we go through to see if there are other reviewers that can be included to manage those workloads more effectively and make sure that we're getting back to you in good time with any answers to questions or queries for those applications. So I mentioned
Katie, sorry to interrupt. It
yes.
seems like we are still having people in the waiting room.
Are
Could
we?
somebody let them in, please? I cannot see the meeting room, the lobby myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Mari. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about anonymity, just to let you know that these top three, so the Rapid Project, the Early Career Fund and the International Fund, they are all anonymous. So those applications, when they're received by the operations team, they will be anonymised. So they'll be stripped of any applicant information before being sent over to our awards panel. And then the following, Impact, Acceleration, Datasets and Skills and the Midterm Review Fund are not going to be anonymous. Mari mentioned earlier that EDI, so equality, diversity and inclusion, is very important for EDRC, and we've tried to build that into the entire centre proposal documentation, and we would like that to be considered in these flexible fund applications as well. So we're going to be monitoring some EDI metrics. We are encouraging applicants to complete an online EDI survey that will be shared via email upon receipt of application. So you don't need to send it with the application because we'd like it to be anonymous, but we will share a link, and we would really appreciate it if when you've sent an application, you could also fill in that EDI survey as well. We'd like to see EDI included in the research process, so please be mindful of that when you are developing your applications as well. And we'd like the considerations to be in the design, the implementation, and the dissemination stages of your research. So throughout that project life cycle, sorry. So what are the requirements? So if you are successful, we will be asking for some reporting. We'd like some quarterly progress updates, so for larger or ongoing projects, to keep us informed about what the project status is, to make sure things are going as they should be. We'll also be asking for a final report. So that report needs to be submitted within a month of the project's conclusion. So it needs to detail the outcomes, the impacts, and the financial use of the awarded funds. So any achieved impact, really important, and how the funds were used in line with the project's objectives. So normal kind of final reporting that you would expect for any grant-funded project. Kirsty, I can see you've got your hand up.
Sorry, that was an accident.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Cool. So there are some other requirements as well. So we're hoping to share more widely what your project outputs have been. So it might be that we're looking for some kind of visual element for dissemination purposes. So we're pretty strong on our social media. We've got various different channels that we use for dissemination, and we'd like to be able to share your project work as well. So have a think about how we might be able to visually disseminate some of the research outputs. So it could be a poster, flyer, infographic, some kind of media, video, or even just a presentation or webinar. And that will help us to share the project results with the wider audience and ensures that EDRC work is accessible for lots of our different stakeholders that we have. We also have a few additional requirements for things like data management. We need to make sure that all of our projects have a clear data management plan. So that will include things like handling, storage, and sharing of research data, making sure that we are compliant with GDPR and other ethical guidelines. It's the responsibility of the PI and the project team to make sure that we are being responsible in those for those data management plans, and for data archiving and sharing of data where appropriate. So we'll be working with you on that. And of course, because we hope that everybody here is going to be very successful, we do need to acknowledge EDRC from those awardees. So we need to acknowledge the support. We've got this statement that's in green, which is the research has been undertaken by EDRC and supported by EPSRC and ESRC, who are our overall funders for this. Great. So we've got plenty of different dissemination activities. As I mentioned earlier, we often host events, meetings, seminars, workshops. So we'd like you guys with your successful projects to be included in these activities as well. So you might be invited to present your findings or participate in various different activities that we will be hosting. And it will be a way to showcase how the research is contributing to energy demand reduction. So there is an expectation that you'll be able to engage in some of those broader EDRC dissemination activities, and that will really enhance the reach and the impact of ours and your own work. So we're getting on towards the Q&A part of this session. So we've got about 30 minutes left at the moment. I know that some of you already shared questions, so I'll be going through some of those in the next couple of slides, but just in case you haven't seen, we do have more information on the website. As I mentioned, we've got a guidance document and an FAQs page. So if you haven't had a look already, please do check that out online at that link there. If you do have any burning questions, we are on email as well. So it's the flexiblefund@edrc.ac.uk. Please do send over questions. And if you haven't already signed up to receive EDRC's newsletter, this is going to be a really great way to keep up to date with our latest research, events, funding opportunities, and basic news that we'll be sharing about the flexible funds. So there's a link there. If somebody could pop that link into the chat, then people will be able to click on it as well, I think, which would be really helpful. So that's the kind of run through of what the flexible fund is. We're now moving on to our Q&A session of this webinar. So some of the pre-submitted questions I've listed here, and I'm just going to quickly go through them. So what's the duration for review and how long can it be? So we're aiming roughly for about a 3-week feedback period for submission or closing of the after submission or closing of the application window. There might be a little bit of flexibility needed with that 3 weeks, but that's what we're aiming for at the moment. Will slightly depend on how many applications we receive to each of the pots of funding, because obviously we want it to be popular, but if it's popular, it means that we've got a lot more work to do. So the second question was, is external collaboration needed for the Rapid Projects Fund? We would strongly encourage external collaboration. We'd like to see consortiums with different stakeholders and partnerships. So yes, I would suggest we would like to see good collaboration in our applications. Do the proposed projects need to match specific theme needs for further work? And there was another question which was similar to this. In the theme of governance, will the research on corporate governance and environmental performance be welcomed for the fund application? They're quite specific questions, so I would advise that the PI discuss the research ideas with the relevant EDRC theme leads before submitting an application. So this will help to ensure that the proposed research, so what you guys are proposing and you would like to submit, is complementary to and then adds value to the existing programme of EDRC research. That would probably be the best way to answer any very specific questions about the different kinds of research topic or projects. Can we develop multi-institution applications? Yes, absolutely. Collaboration is encouraged. So please do speak to others, partners, that you would like to bring into your research project team. Can we apply for this fund to organise an international workshop for ECRs? Yes, again, this is something that we would like to encourage, but do discuss different opportunities with our EDRC ECR champion. So that's Kate Pangboard, because it may be that we're already planning something similar, but we'd love to work with you if we are. A few more questions I'm just going to go through. Are international organisations allowed to apply for this scheme? Yes, but as long as the main applicant is based at a UKRI registered research organisation. So the PI would need to be at a UKRI registered research organisation, but we are very happy for international organisations to be part of that project team. Can I submit applications for multiple funds? Yes. Although we are going to put in place some demand management for different applications. So applicants who've received funding in a previous financial year, they can apply again for a new project up to a maximum of 2 funded projects over the duration of the Flexible Fund. So we're just trying to make sure that there's fairness and transparency on who has been successful in those applications, so that, you know, it's not the same person that is successful for all of the different pots and they end up with, you know, 6 different projects that they're trying to run over the next few years. Would an application for a short-term project, which would follow on from and expand the discovery of an existing trial project, be in scope? Yes, if this supports research that identifies evidence-based energy demand reductions for a sustainable and more equitable future. So yes, if it would help to support the existing work that EDRC is doing. Then a question for students. I'm a PhD student. Am I considered an ECR? Well, I think there's different ways of looking at this. For the flexible funds, full-time research students are not eligible to apply, so you wouldn't be able to be a PI, but you can be included in the research team. So it's no cost to the project and no negative impact to the delivery of their PhD research. If they're part-time PhD students, then it's slightly different because they can be included in that research team, but they still, I don't think, are eligible to apply to be a PI, principal investigator. And then the final pre-submitted question, what impact or outcome are most highly valued when evaluating proposals? So we've talked a lot about impact. I've put the impact, what impact it means for our funders. So ESRC says it sorry, put my teeth back in. Demonstrable contribution that excellent research makes to society and the economy. And EPSRC says long-term intended or unintended effect research and innovation has on society, economy, and the environment, from individuals to organisations, nations, and the wider global population. So there's some of the pre-submitted questions, which I hope I've been able to answer. There was also a couple of questions on dates, and deadlines. So I just took this table from our guidance document, which is online. It shows that the Rapid Project Fund is currently open and the International Fund is currently open. Now, you can see across the top is months, which I've just numbered. The International Fund, the deadline for the first round is probably going to be 1st of February, and we're looking at funding decisions by March. So that can give you a bit of an overview of some of those deadlines that we're looking at. I will update the website with specific dates for some of the rounds that will close. So, for example, our Early Career Research Fund and our Impact Acceleration Fund. So that's the end of my formal presentation. This is the space now. We've got about 20 minutes for further questions. So I'm going to open it up to the floor. So please do raise your hand if you've got any further questions that I can try and answer. Or do pop some things in the chat as well. First hand that I can see is Gavin.
Hi, Katie. Thank you. I've put the question in the chat. Can you just be clear, are there going to be specific call deadlines for the rapid projects pot, or is it just going to be open-ended? You receive them whenever you receive them and respond within 3 weeks? Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Gavin. Thanks for that question. Yes, we are going to keep the rapid projects open and not give specific deadlines. We feel that we're able to respond fairly rapidly to the Rapid Projects Fund. It's one of our top ones we're going to keep open. So there's no specific deadlines at this stage. We'll continually review. We're also thinking that after we've received a few different applications, we might do a survey of some of our applicants to see how the whole thing is working. So were you able to resubmit if you needed to resubmit in time? Does it fit with the project timelines, that kind of thing? So yes, open-ended, no fixed deadline for rapid projects. So please submit as and when you'd like to.
Thank you.
Thanks. Steve Hall, I can see your hand up.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I just popped in the chat whether or not we could have the emails for the theme leads, and the theme leads are listed in the leadership team, but not so much for me because I really don't mind badgering people on LinkedIn, but making sure that those avenues are open for people who don't have existing access to theme leads is really important on an EDI perspective, because it's not about who you know, it's about what you know, right? So if I don't have, I'm thinking about applying through the equity team, and I don't have the two theme leads email in my Gmail, as I'm relatively new to University of York. So it's really important for me to be able to get hold of them, set up a meeting, tell them what I fancy doing, and see what they think. But I think that if everyone had access to that, it'd make it super fair for everyone else.
Thanks, Steve. That's a really good point. I will upload, let's see, how can I do it? I'll update the guidance document so that against those reviewers, we also have contact details. And then I'll make sure that it's also visible on our web pages as well. Does that work?
Yes, sorry, I muted myself.
No, you're all right. Thanks, Steve.
Katie, can I just add to that also that the theme leads, they have links to their university profiles from our website, and those list all of their contact details as well.
Thanks, Mari. Good point. Brill. I'm gonna go through a couple of the questions that I can see in the chat. And then, so I can see that you've got your hand up, so I'll come to you next. So first question from Kanika. While defining ECR, does the criteria of has a PhD mean someone who has finished their PhD or has an ongoing PhD? So it would mean that they would need to have finished their PhD. I believe that they can be part of the project team if they haven't, but just as long as it doesn't impact in any negative way the finishing of their PhD and the studies that they need to be done. Yes, Yingshang. I am going to this. So this session is actually being recorded. So the plan is to then upload it to the website when we're finished, so that anybody that wasn't able to join can also review. So yes, we can also share the slides as well. That's fine. What is, Youssef says, what is the review or assessment time frame? So I mentioned earlier that we're hopefully looking to get back to people within a kind of 3-week window. We're going to be responding to all applicants with feedback. That's what we are asking our reviewers to give as well. So the reviewers will be giving some specific feedback to the applications, which we will then pass on. And then, yep, answered Steve ones about emails. And Gavin. Great. Linos, I can see you've got your hand up.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for the presentation. It's been really helpful. From the bits and pieces that I've read, I think ECRs are eligible to apply for the Rapid fund as well. I was just wondering if you could potentially talk about any sort of differences between those two funds, apart from the obvious, which is the opening and closing dates, and also the amount of money. Kind of, are there any differences between them? As an ECR myself, like, is it better for me to apply for the ECR one or the other one? Are EDRC providing any extra support for ECRs in terms of, if this is their first pot of money that they're going for? Are there any sort of mentoring things or any extra help as part of the ECR fund? So yeah, there's a few questions in that, but what's the difference between them? And then if you do the ECR one, do you get any extra support from EDRC?
Sure. Thanks. So yeah, there are some differences. So Rapid Projects is kind of something that is a very quick turnaround, something that's emerging globally. We're trying to pinpoint specific research needs with that Rapid Projects fund. The ECR fund is more focused around development, I guess, of ECRs, and especially for those who might not have led a grant fund like this before. So that's a really important point, I think, or a distinction between the two pots. I mean, ultimately, it's up to the individual to I guess, choose which they think is more appropriate to the research project. Kate Pangborn and we have an ECR working group within EDRC, so within the current consortium. We've been talking about what the mentoring opportunities could be for those ECRs, and there might be some additional training opportunities that we can provide to help support ECRs if this is a new opportunity. So yes, more widely, it's something that we're considering, thinking about. What additional support can we give? How can we make sure that the ECR pot is used in the best way possible and encourage more applications from a more diverse group of people? Yeah. So yes. Mari, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just to add to that, I wanted to make a couple of points that first of all, just on the PhD student issue, that unfortunately it's the UKRI rules that don't allow us to pay for students. So hence we cannot support students. And on the question of the rapid projects versus the ECR fund, the early career fund also allows you to apply for more funding. So the maximum per project is 72,000. So you have a bit of a bigger pot to play with that one compared to the rapid project one.
Thanks, Mari. Yishang?
Yeah, hello. Thank you for the presentation. It's very clear. And I have one question about the international fund. So if it's an international collaboration and this fund is very UK based and maybe focused in the UK context, so can we still have the research like to balance both UK and abroad, or should we focus on the UK context only?
Oh, that's a tricky question. We would need the PI to be based at a UKRI registered research organisation or institute, but we are very much encouraging international collaboration. Mari, I can see that you've got your hand up. Do you want to jump in on this?
Yes. So with the international fund, again, we have some limitations which are due to our funder limitations of what we can and can't pay. So, for example, if somebody wants to invite a researcher from another university to come to the UK and vice versa, the limit is for roughly about a 2-week visit. So we cannot pay for like, really extensive amount of research time in another university elsewhere than the UK, for example. So we can pay for people to come for a visit. So the idea is that this fund will allow you to start making collaboration and start developing ideas for bigger projects that you might then apply for. Say, you want to apply for a Horizon project together with some European colleagues and organize, initial sort of plans on that. And definitely, yes, research that is also outside the UK context is very relevant for this fund, because we recognize that a lot of our projects at the moment in EDRC are UK based. So while the centre as a whole aims to reduce energy demand and figure out energy demand in the UK context, there is also a lot of learning that we can get from international sort of examples in international projects. So we would really welcome people to also think about research context in other countries than the UK with those projects.
All right, thank you so much.
Great. I'm going to move back to the chat because I can see that there's a few other questions coming in. So Steve asked, he said, I know this is a boring question, but no question is boring. So is the word limit in the boxes on the form including footnotes? I'm putting references in, but it does mean another 100 words. Sorry, I know it's dull. That's fine. What we've tried to do is make sure that people aren't writing reams and reams and reams on these application forms. I don't want it to be too onerous for anybody that's applying, but also it's really important for our reviewers as well that they don't have pages and pages and pages to read. So it's a bit of a balancing act. I would say that if there's references, let's go for footnotes. Trying to be a bit lenient here. That's okay. I know that 100 words is not very much. 500 words is also not very much for the case for support. So trying to balance it where you can. If you can keep it within the word limit, please do. Mari.
Yeah, thank you. I just this is actually relating to a little bit to the ECR question as well from Kanika, but I just wanted to add a little bit to the previous point on ECRs and training particularly. And while we are developing specifically EDRC training, I would also encourage anyone who is an early career researcher to see what is available at their universities, because for example, at Sussex this week, in the last few weeks, our research development office has run really useful training sessions for people who are applying for grants, including the details of how do you write a good title and starting paragraph, for example. So I would also encourage people to seek out any funding application advice and training that you have in your local institutions, while also getting the inputs and the sort of training and feedback from us at EDRC as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Mari. Sarah, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yes, just a quick point. UKRI rules with word count mean that one of two things happen. Either they disregard your proposal entirely if you're over the word count, or they will stop reading when they reach the word count. So it is a discipline that you need to learn for applying for funding. I would suggest that we consider that here too. Sorry to spoil the fun, but just thought it worth mentioning.
Thanks, Sarah. So there's another question in the chat from Gavin, which says, please, can you say a few words about the need for letters of support or other ways of demonstrating partner commitment? Do you require, encourage, welcome match funding? Yes. So this is quite an important point, actually. So all of our sub-project funds, the whole flexible fund is only supported at 80% full economic costing. I know that there is an error on the guidance document, I think on page 10, which I'm getting changed, which says 100%. But if you scroll down to the application form example, you'll clearly see in the second column, I think it is, that says the request for funding is maximum at 80% full economic cost. So yes, we would definitely support and welcome and encourage match funding. I think it's kind of important. It shows also kind of our partner commitments, if that's where it's coming from. And I think letters of support are really important as well, because it shows that your institution or your organisation has a commitment to supporting the project. So it doesn't have to be anything long. It can just be a statement if that's the best use. But yeah, we would try and demonstrate. We would encourage you to try and demonstrate that commitment through some sort of statement or letter, or yeah, other way of showing commitment. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions, Mari?
Yeah, just I think Kanika's question is still a little bit unanswered, which is, for a project under ECR fund, can the PI be a senior researcher applying for a project to support ECR events, or the PI necessarily has to be an ECR themselves? So for that one, funds are available for ECRs who meet the eligibility requirements, have not been a PI or project lead on a single research project valued at more than 100K full economic costs. We are looking at a little bit of the 100K thing, but we specifically want people that haven't led big projects before and have not led a project that included more than 6 months of PDRA, postdoctoral research assistant time. So we really want the ECR fund to be encouraged towards people who have not led big projects before, so that we create opportunities for early career research to become PIs, which is something that you will need for your career progression. I hope that answers your question, Kanika. If not, please ask in person as well.
Thanks, everybody. Any further questions? Oh, I can see that Gavin has just added, is there a means to upload lists of support in support of the applications? I would suggest that those are sent over to the Flexible Fund email address, or in the justification, you can just include a small statement and the name of the person that has supported. That would be great. Christian, I can see you've got your hand up.
Hello, sorry, quick one, and I've probably seen this somewhere and I've completely forgot. Sorry if I'm just repeating something else. Minimum and maximum durations of the projects. I don't know if we discussed that.
We haven't. No, we've left that open.
Okay.
We are conscious that we can't have projects that are going too close to the end of EDRC, so that's midway into 2028, because that will be too close to the potential close of the centre. Obviously, we don't want the centre to close, we want to continue, but obviously that's dependent on other things. So yeah, just conscious that we're not too close to that kind of June 2028 date for the end of any project applications, which is why you'll see in the timeline, we've closed applications at the end of 2027, because that will give people enough time to be able to complete projects before that middle of 28 period. So I'm not specifying how long those projects and the applications, the projects should be, because I think that's up to the researchers. But just be mindful of that end of centre date. Thanks, Christian. Mari.
I can see that there's another question from Gavin, just to highlight that to you, Katie.
Sure. So Gavin, for the ECR fund, if you have been awarded grant funds at over 100k but moved institutions, so not completed, would you still be eligible? Oh, that's a bit of a tough one. I think it would depend on what. Let me come back to you, Gavin. Let me have a think about that, because it might depend on what the fund was. We've been talking a bit about what additional funding PhDs can have. If it's not a PhD fund, then I might need to have a bit of a think about it. Let me come back to you if that's okay.
And just to add to that we have a full Q&A section on the website as well. So the questions that have come through in the webinar today, we can add those also on the website, so that others who couldn't make it today can have a chance to look at the questions there. It's a long list of questions now, so hopefully that will provide more information for people.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we've got about 3 minutes left before we round up. Are there any final questions that I might be able to answer or clarify? All right. Well, thanks, everybody. It's been great to see you all online. We are really looking forward to receiving your applications. Please do reach out if you do have any further questions to that flexible fund at edrc.ac.uk email address. That's being monitored, and we're trying to aim to come back to you as soon as we can with answers to questions and queries. So yes, thank you, everybody. Keep an eye on our website. We'll be making some updates as we go forward, and on our socials and in our newsletter. So thank you, everybody. Take care.